Welcome to Movie Oubliette, the film review podcast for movies that most people have mercifully forgotten.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Conrad, and in each episode, we drag a forsaken film out of the oubliette,
Discuss it and judge it to decide whether it should be set free
or whether it should be thrown back and consigned to oblivion forever. We review the films others tend to forget. Come with us and open up the movie oubliette. Welcome to episode 116 of Movie Oubliette, the intercontinental podcast for forgotten fantastical films with me, Conrad, trying to buy all of his Christmas presents in Black Friday sales in Cambridge, UK.
It's the way. And me, Dan, about to release a collaborative kids music album down here in Melbourne, Australia.
Ooh. We focus on sci-fi, fantasy, and horror films because we adore parasitic fungal infections, fairies frolicking in the forests, and possessed dads on the rampage with farming implements. Hello, Dan.
Hello, Conrad. How are you today?
I'm not too bad at all, yes. Just horrified that Christmas is suddenly very, very close.
It is. It's fast approaching. I mean, I do appreciate these sales. I mean, they never used to be this global. You know, Black Friday was an American sale after Thanksgiving, but now it's everywhere. There's Click Frenzy. There's Singles Day, which is a sale that happens in China that is now everywhere now.
Really?
But it's all in this block of November that all these sales happen, and yes, very, very handy for Christmas presents.
It is, yeah. So I gather that from my American friends that Thanksgiving is sort of the bigger event over there, and it's when family comes together, and then they go on this massive buying binge on the day after for some reason. And Christmas is more of a smaller affair, maybe with just your immediate family.
I don't actually know which one is bigger. I mean, the whole reason they have a sale is because, you know, everyone's buying presents for the day of, you know, Thanksgiving or Christmas. And then the following day, they're trying to get rid of stock. And so they have a sale. Yeah. I mean, that's what Boxing Day sales were for us anyway. Not sure how it works with Thanksgiving. Is it even a present giving day?
I'm not sure it is.
Or is it just
I think it's just
a get together.
Tolerate your family and say that you're thankful for things. Okay. I think that's it.
Okay. I don't know then. Americans, tell us why you do these things.
Please school us in the ways of Thanksgiving, because it's a strange thing for us. It's in the past now, so you've escaped it. How did it go? We want to hear.
Yes.
So a collaborative children's album. What's this all about?
Well, I mean, I've been collaborating with a couple of people from Hit Record and on a kids album. So we've been working on it for almost a year now, maybe, since the start of the year anyway. And it was supposed to be released in the Northern Hemisphere summer, but just kind of keep getting delayed, and initially it was going to be an EP, like 3 or 4 songs, but it's just grown and grown, and now it's 10 songs.
Oh wow!
And I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us all together worked on it. It's mainly just me and 2 other people. They did most of the songwriting. I just did the mixing and production, that sort of thing. But yes, It's coming out very, very soon. So, watch the space.
Yeah, why? What's it called?
It's called Great Big Forest.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of
songs.
Coming
to a platform near you.
A lot of songs about dogs and trees, but all the great things in life.
That sounds good to me. Need more of that.
Talking about other great things, what's in store for us in the mailbag today, Conrad?
Well, we received a new review on Apple Podcasts.
Oh, yes.
And it was titled Simply the Best. So get ready to blush. I love this podcast so much. Dan and Conrad are funny, insightful, and so intelligent. Their hard
Oh.
work and passion is evident in every single episode, from writing their own jingles for every episode, to watching different cuts of each film, to researching directorial intent. Each episode is packed with all their love, and I'm here for it. Beyond all this, they're also kind and respectful to their fans and patrons. Movie Oubliette has created an amazing community of fans, geeks and cinephiles that I'm grateful to be a part of, and I've loved going through their back catalogue of episodes. Thank you so much, says Icon Maker 24
Wow.
in the USA.
Just wow. Thank you so much. That's amazing.
It is. Yeah, I mean, that's everything I ever hoped we might achieve. So it's great to hear that it's hitting those notes for people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I really appreciate that. That's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We also heard from Braden, who is looking through our back catalogue, and he said, enjoyed your Leviathan episode, which is, quite a while ago now.
Oh, yeah.
And they said, my favourite element is Amanda Pay's character jogging in full makeup. No worries at all about breaking into a sweat.
Yeah, I know. I mean, a lot of moisture down there in the under the sea. I don't really see the point of makeup.
No, I didn't even notice that, but it is hilarious. It's even worse than running in heels in a Jurassic Park adventure, but there we go. On Elvira, Phil and his musings said, well, for two Elvira virgins, this is a fantastic episode and a wonderful history of the character by Dan as well. A shame she had to leave Twitter just before this episode debuted.
Oh,
which is true.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, she got some negative responses to revealing that she was a member of the LGBTQ community.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's awful.
Yeah, but I think we'll all be leaving Twitter soon anyway, so I wouldn't worry about
Yeah, it's probably going to collapse pretty soon, yes.
Yep. Dustin says, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, should be free of the oubliette, but Elvira's haunted hills can stay in there. Side note, I listened to her autobiography on audiobook, and it's worth checking out if you're an Elvira fan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've heard mixed reviews about his second film, so I'm cautious. But I am still interested.
I am too. It's on Amazon Prime here at the moment, so I may check it out. I watched the first 5 minutes just to figure out what the sort of setting is, and it is sort of medieval times, and it's though she's like in a Hammer horror movie. It looks like.
Oh, okay. I mean, I kind of
different.
Wanted the first movie to be that, so that sounds appealing to me.
Yeah, it might work for you, so we'll see. And yes, I do have her audiobook on my Audible queue.
Yes.
So I may well check that one out. Kevin from Planet X said, love the epi. It's obviously short for episode, when you're cool. I too discovered this film only fairly recently. Prior, I had only a cursory knowledge of Elvira, and I generally agree with your appraisal. I also felt surprised there wasn't so strong a horror element, and I think the second film addresses that nicely. Haunted Hills, 2002, largely keeps the same tone and humour from Mistress, but puts Elvira in a period gothic horror inspired by Roger Corman's cycle of Poe adaptations. It's nice to see the character thrust into the type of film she lampoons. It's a fun watch, especially for fans of Mel Brooks' Frankenstein and Dracula parodies like myself. So there you go.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm very fascinated now. Yes. I'll check it out.
Yeah, will do. And finally, we heard from the very handsome and intelligent Serge of Cold Crush Pictures.
Hello, Serge.
Hello, Serge. He says, it took me 2 viewings to dial into Elvira, Mistress of the Dark's wavelength, but I came around in a big way. As Movie Oubliette says in their latest ep, it's a style of comedy that isn't really around anymore, but it's done very well, and there's no telling when we'll get another. There you go.
Yeah.
Very true.
Very true.
Yeah. So thanks for rating and reviewing and for writing in. We always love hearing from you.
Yes. Please comment some more. So, Conrad, what is in the oubliette today for us to check out?
Well, it'll be a change of advertised film today for the first time ever in our podcast history. Unfortunately, our planned guest wasn't able to be with us today due to unforeseen circumstances. which is, yes, sad, but we will catch up with them very soon in the new year, I hope, and we will do Kronos then. So today, well, I suppose I better go over to the oubliette and find out. I think I'll take my camera for some reason. Oh, it's night time and it's the woods for some reason down here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I can't see a thing. I'm going to use my camera flash. Ooh, that's a bit creepy. Ooh.
What are they? Creatures?
No idea, but I've just revealed a film on the floor, so I'll just grab that and come back.
Oh, don't creepy-eye me, Ant-Man.
You should have just taken the torch, Conrad.
Would have been much more sensible, wouldn't it? But now that I'm back here in the light of the studio, I can tell you that I have brought back with me The Hallow, a 2015 horror film directed by Corin Hardy, written by Hardy and Philippe Marino, starring Joseph Maul, Bojana Navakovic, Michael McElhatton, and Michael Smiley. It's a British-Irish co-production filmed in Ireland that premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in 2015.
Ah, yeah. So what happens in this horror film?
Well, it focuses on British conservationist Adam Hitchens and his wife Claire, who move into a remote mill house in Ireland with their baby son Finn to study Ireland's last publicly owned woodland before it's deforested by evil developers. They're soon beset by strange occurrences: a deer ripped apart by a mysterious sentient black fungus, monsters with glowing eyes watching them from the trees, and windows breaking late at night. Is it the local angry farmers who resent the arrival of city folk, or is it, as one policeman suggests with a straight face, drunken nocturnal birds? The couple soon realise they're being preyed upon by the Hallow, ancient fairies protecting their vanishing habitat from the interlopers. Will they escape before the creatures steal their baby? Will Claire escape her husband after he's been possessed by parasitic fungus? And will the dog buy the farm first?
Oh.
Find out after the break.
Yeah. Okay, we are back to talk about the 2015 Irish horror film, The Hallow. This is actually a double blind. None of us had seen this movie.
We had not. Better ring that jingle.
Double blind.
Would you consider this movie to be a folk horror?
I would, yes. And I will talk about this a bit more in the Mooblies, but yeah, it's definitely part of the 2010s trend of folk horror movies. There seem to be a lot of people venturing out into rural areas in the 2010s and it not going particularly well.
Yeah, I would say this was slightly different though, because I kind of feel like there are two types of folk horror. There's the folk horror where it's just cults.
Yes.
It's just people being crazy and doing rituals that they shouldn't be doing and sacrifices, that sort of thing. You know, Midsummer, The Ritual, that sort of thing. And then you've got your folk horror with, fairy tale creatures, which I feel like The Hallow falls into. I prefer that, to be honest. Like, I feel like the cult aspect is a bit overdone by now.
Yeah, and sometimes they manage to do both at the same time, like former guest David Bruckner's The Ritual, where there's a cult, but there's also a weird creature. So we tick both boxes, which is great.
Yeah. So, I mean, just the general vibe and look of this movie did remind me a lot of Pan's Labyrinth, which I think the director does cite as one of the main influences. Also, Lady in the Water was quite similar in terms of like a modern day setting with, you know, fairy tale creatures. Obviously, Lady in the Water was more of a urban sort of suburban environment, whereas this is just, you know, a cabin in the woods again. I did kind of feel like this movie did what I wanted Lady in the Water to do. I wanted more horror aspects in Lady in the Water, but it didn't deliver on that level, whereas this did. There is a lot of horror in this movie, a lot of jump scares.
Yes.
The director went on to direct The Nun, which is also just drenched in jump scares galore.
It's probably the uber jump scare movie. I mean, I'm saying that I haven't seen it because it was so poorly reviewed by critics that I respect. And of course, we had that interaction with Mark Kermode, Britain's leading film critic, because he has this joke that he hates the movies that are quiet, quiet, bang.
Yeah.
And we tweeted back at him, this one's more quiet, quiet, none.
Yes.
And he talked about that on his show, and I might share that clip with our patrons actually because it still makes me smile. But yeah, it was interesting because at the time Kermode said, that Corin Hardy, this new director, British director, who was a big fan of the genre, had created this unique and slightly interesting horror movie called The Hallow. And it's a shame that he would, go into the Hollywood movie machine and make one of these Blumhouse Conjureverse movies and just resort to jump scare after jump scare after jump scare. He'd obviously, his directorial voice had not survived the machine. And I thought, no, actually, if you watch this movie, he was clearly this way all along because there are a lot of shit jump scares in this movie.
Yeah, I mean,
including ones that really irritate me, that are just badly engineered. Like, when the wife has just had the visit from the scary, glowering local farmer, and then her husband walks up behind her.
Yes.
But it's really badly engineered, and it's just a loud noise for no reason. And this is walking in a normal shot up a corridor holding a baby. It's not scary in the slightest. So some of it's really bad and unearned, I thought.
Yeah, a jump scare, it needs two elements, really. It needs the visual element, so something jumping out, hence the name, and also the big bang, the big sound cue. And without the visual element, it's just the loud sound.
It's just cattle prod cinema, which when that kind of thing happens, I've, just end up shouting, "Oh, fuck you, movie."
Yeah.
Because I just get annoyed. I want a creeping sense of dread with the occasional well-earned and engineered jump, maybe. But I do not like cattle prod cinema.
Yeah.
I don't find that clever or entertaining in the slightest. I just get annoyed.
There is one jump scare in this movie, which is just, I literally was like, fuck you, movie. And that's in the credits.
It is,
why
yes.
is
And
it
I
in the
shouted,
credits?
fuck you, movie as well. I did. Yep, I did. I threw my remote across
it's
the room.
after the movie ends, the credits is rolling. We've got this long shot of this logging company cutting down trees. And then you have this big sound, like a pre-jump scare, big sound of the truck coming past. And then a Hallow creature jumping out right at the end after that. It's just like, what's the point in this? I don't get it.
It's such a shame because that shot is actually the only shot, first of all, where the camera is locked off. It's on a tripod, whereas the rest of the movie is largely handheld, and the cinematography is one of the things I think is pretty poor in this movie. Not in sort of the way that it's lit. I think it looks beautiful and they take full advantage of the location. But the fact that it's always handheld, even indoors, really wore me down because it just looked expedient and cheap rather than a stylistic choice. But maybe it was, I don't know. But that shot is locked off. The credits are rolling. There's this great song on the soundtrack and it pans across the forest being torn down and all the logs lined up against the road, and then rests on the untouched forest on the other side of the road and slowly pushes in, and you think, that's actually quite good. Then the lorry bursts in screen right with a sound, and you think, well, that's stupid because you would have heard it coming, so fuck you, movie, but okay. And it stops on a log on the lorry that's got the black fungus on it, and you think, a little warning that something is going to survive and there could be a sequel. Okay, fade to black now. No, stupid fucking cattle prod jump cut as the truck pulls away, and it's clearly not designed that way. That's a shot from somewhere else in the movie.
Yeah.
It didn't need to be there. Somebody somewhere in the editing bay just completely lost faith in their stylish ending and put that shit on the top of it like a rotten cherry on top of the cake, and damn them to hell.
Yeah. I like the concept of the film and the premise and the faerie creatures and that sort of thing, and some of the weaknesses of the creatures as well. The fact that they don't like light, they don't like iron, which was interesting. But I did find sort of the themes kind of confusing, like the whole environment versus civilization, like nature versus mankind. I thought that was kind of confused. Like I didn't think it was that strong. And seeing that last final shot of the logging company, it's like, oh, this is the theme of the movie? I didn't get that.
Yeah.
And when you described the synopsis, I didn't know what his job was. Like he was some sort of botanist or something, but he didn't seem to do much work. He just gets high a lot. I mean, and they're just living in this house and they have a baby, and I don't know, like it felt confusing thematically.
Yeah, I didn't know what his goal was. So I didn't know what the locals objected to.
Yeah.
There was a tension there that wasn't explained. I mean, then it's revealed that the local farmer, Colin, lost his child to the fairies in the woods, and he's actually just trying to warn them away, but is doing it in the typical gruff pub goers in American Werewolf in London style, whereby they're just not clear enough and they're just really unwelcoming.
Yeah.
But he just scares them a lot and deposits a book on their table that looks like the Book of the Dead that they vaguely flick through and learn nothing from.
I know. It spells out everything and they don't even glance at it. Yeah.
No. He looks at it once and looks at one woodcut of a baby and says, "Changeling," and then that just sets up the fact that the baby will have a doppelganger at some point in the movie. But that's it.
Yeah.
That's the sole and complete contribution of this book to the movie. And I think this highlights something that I noticed with the movie. There are a lot of things like that, like the environmentalist theme, that are just vaguely hinted towards but not really developed. And I think the film is trying to be too many things, because you've got the parasitic fungus thing going on.
Yes.
So I thought, okay, is this Splinter? Is it the Thing? Because it seems to take people over. He talks about the parasitic fungus that gets into the brains of ants and affects their behavior, which is horrifying. Oddly enough, there was a series that I watched around the same time, 2015, called Fortitude, starring Stanley Tucci, that was set in the Arctic, that had a very similar theme as this black gunk taking over people and turning them into homicidal zombies.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, quite entertaining. So I don't know whether that's just a coincidence, but Splinter was 2010, I think. So there just seemed to be a lot of things going on, and the baby in peril as well, and the baby monitor with the noises coming through just put me in mind of Insidious. It feels to me like seeing interviews with Corin Hardy. He's a genuine horror fan who's been making monsters in his garage and making movies on video cameras with his friends since a young age, and he's name-checking really great inspirations. But the end result is just sort of everything, and none of it particularly developed, I felt.
Yes, in the interview that I saw, he has a lot, all his inspiration, Ray Harryhausen films he grew up on. He mentions Alien, The Evil Dead 2, The Fly, The Thing, and that is all in this movie. Like, it's almost like he's taken all of his favorite films and put it in this is his first film, his debut feature. He also described it as Straw Dogs or Deliverance meets the Pan's Labyrinth, which is it's also that as well. But I did like the fact that it is fairy tale and it is horror, because fairy tale normally goes fantasy.
Yeah.
Normally. It's always like fairy tales, fairies, mythical creatures. Let's go fantasy. And there aren't that many horror fairy tale movies. Obviously, Pan's Labyrinth. There's a couple of Hansel Gretel movies that are horror, and then you've got your sort of more traditional fairy tales like Company of the Wolves with werewolves and Red Riding Hood and The Witch with witches. Whereas he wanted to go down a different route with Irish folklore, which was really interesting. I think Irish folklore is fascinating, like all these like banshees and the changeling aspect, which I don't know what I've really seen on film. I mean, there are the movies, The Changeling, both those two movies, completely different movies about the babies or beings being swapped out by some, mythical creature being. But I don't think I've really seen it in this respect with a baby on film. I'm sure there are films like that that have it. But I thought that was really interesting. And in that scene, I mean, big spoilers here, in the scene at the end where Adam has gone full crazy because he's been infected with the goo. And so Claire doesn't know whether to believe him or not, or whether he's part of the goo and part of the creatures now, or whether he's still Adam. And he tells her, no, the baby that you're holding is not the baby, it's a changeling. Here's the baby, I brought the baby. And I thought that was a really gripping scene, her trying to decide whether to go with Adam, the husband that she loves, or to go with her gut instinct of, but this is my baby. I've been holding my baby the whole time. And that final scene of whether or not it's the changeling or the baby or the changeling, I thought that was really good. I'm not sure about the CGI of the baby, though, at the end. It's like the worst CGI I've ever seen.
It looks like stop motion from Evil Dead 2, doesn't it? Or Evil Dead, more likely.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it just didn't work. I mean, talking about effects, what did you think about like the creatures and just the general special effects in this movie?
Well, I enjoyed the special effects because it was largely practical, I thought. And the monsters are great. They're really well designed. They're really well executed, I thought, in terms of their performance. And I liked the way that they were shot, lit, and edited because it was always just enough so that you could see them and you could see them moving in ways that perhaps you weren't expecting in bodily configurations that your eye can't quite work out, but not long enough for you to really say, oh, hang on, that's a guy in a suit. So I thought it got the balance really good, in fact, in the way it executed the monsters.
Watching the behind the scenes, yes, so he used mostly practical effects. He did use some CGI to enhance some of the practical effects, but he did spend a lot of time trying to get the creatures' movements right. He hired a guy called Peter Elliott, and he had a background in animal and creature performance choreography. So he was more trying to develop movement with breathing.
Okay.
So there's a really cool behind the scenes footage of him like demonstrating how he used breathing with the movement. So like kind of heaving with the movement, which was really interesting, and having the heads do very subtle kind of jerks that were almost like unnoticeable. So there was a lot of thought gone into the movement, and also the creature design with they had extensions. Some of them had like stilts on, some of them had these kind of extensions on the arms, and the faces, they actually wore them on the top of their heads. So when they were down on all fours, it was like looking forwards, but their faces were actually
down,
looking at the ground. So they did spend a lot of time trying to make them not look like, you know, people in rubber suits.
Yeah, guys in the suit. Yeah.
And I thought, I thought it was really scary, and especially that some of the first scenes where you see them, and they're just in the background, they're not in focus, and they're just kind of moving. They almost look like they're curious, like trying to figure out, what's this human doing? Yeah, it was really quite terrifying.
Definitely. So I love the design of the monsters. I kind of wanted more of a sense of what they were and what they were trying to achieve, because it wasn't clear to me, really.
No.
I mean, eventually it sort of emerged that they wanted the baby, and not just as a way to punish the family, but because they wanted it to be part of their family in some way.
Yeah. I mean, I was confused about that. Like, what was their motive of, you know, terrorizing this couple in the woods? Because they weren't really destroying the woods. I mean, he put a couple of spray painted X's on some trees, but he's not, you know, he's not leaving rubbish behind or, you know, killing rabbits or something. You know, he's just like a guy hiking in the woods with his baby strapped to his back. Not the greatest parenting, but, you know. So, yeah, I was confused by motive, but I guess stealing the baby. And when I watched it again, the first quote, how like when you trespass, you become the hallowed. So that actually kind of makes sense. Like they're kind of taking over the humans, they're infecting them with the goo. So they become part of the hallow, I guess. Is there a motive?
Yeah, maybe. I couldn't figure out what the relationship was between them and the hallow, because it wasn't as though, were they like throwing the hallow at them, or was it coming from them? It seemed to be like two separate antagonistic forces in the movie that didn't seem to have any kind of relationship. Like, what was the relationship of the fairy folk with the environment that they were in? So you sort of have, like, Act 1, you have character development, or at least a setup, with the locals being the antagonists and the monsters being the antagonists. Then you kind of lose interest in the monsters and it becomes a full-on fungal, The Thing, The Blob, Splinter movie. And then you have The Shining with the
husband going crazy,
yeah, chasing after the woman and a child.
Yeah.
So it's sort of 3 different movies with 3 different antagonists, and I couldn't see really the relationship between any of them narratively, and certainly not thematically.
Yeah.
There was no thematic coherence at all.
And also after the sort of Shining-esque act with the husband, with Adam going crazy, then he gains control of his ailment as well. So it almost becomes like a District 9 type movie where he's still him, but he's got the Hallow strength and he can scream really scary and like, you know, pound creatures with a rock, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it shifts again. So you're like, I guess because they're trying to play with the fact whether the audience doesn't know whether Adam is good or bad.
Yeah.
I guess. And they're trying to play with that. But it was confusing because you kind of didn't really know, where is this going? I don't see where the goal is.
No. And within that, there are a number of sequences that I thought, this doesn't make any sense to me at all. So just simple things like how the fairies managed to lock Adam in the boot of his own car just by slamming the lid. You just see the lids being slammed down, but apparently they managed to push him in it and lock him in it. And they don't then attack the car and take the baby. They just leave him for hours, presumably until night falls. And then only when he wakes up do they then launch an assault on the car to take the baby away, which didn't make any sense to me. And another scene where Adam, for some reason, Claire finds it perfectly fine. Well, she does protest, but her husband locks their baby in a cupboard because he thinks that'll be safer than them holding on to it, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. And the Hallow, or the fairies, steal the baby, but somehow the baby makes no noise whilst this is happening, and it's only when Claire opens the door. She opens the door just in time to see them finally pulling the baby out of the hole in the wall that they've managed to dig in, and that they did this soundlessly. It's just simple things like that, and just odd things like Claire running through the woods holding one half of the baby monitor and hearing the baby on it to track the baby, and you're thinking, so is the baby wearing a lav mic? Or is it holding the other half of the baby monitor in its little baby fist and screaming into it? I don't, there's just various practical things that I just thought, what? What is happening?
I mean, I feel like it's more, they were decisions made just for the movie. Like they seem like this is a horror movie thing that we should do. This would be terrifying for the audience. But yeah, in reality, not a lot of practical sort of logical sense when you really think about it.
No, it's all decisions to create horror scenes that they'd enjoy doing.
Yes.
And it's a shame because the first part, setting things up, I was on board with. Act 1, I was fine with. I thought these are interesting characters. There's a bit of dialogue going on. I'm interested. And then at the end of Act 1, they say, screw this, something's not right, we're leaving. And I thought, yay, finally, main characters doing something sensible in a horror movie.
Yeah.
They're getting the hell out of here. Obviously, they won't make it, but at least they're making the right decision rather than carrying on. And at that point, you get like a really great scene. And then after that, the whole thing just sort of derailed, I thought, for Acts 2 and 3.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of found the experience of this movie was similar to watching a slasher movie in the fact that it's a whole bunch of people making kind of bad decisions, like quite bad decisions. I mean, the husband alone, he's the worst husband and the worst father. He just, like, I mean, I've written the list of things that he's done. So, for starters, he wanders around in the forest with a baby strapped to his back and inspects a rotting corpse of a deer. I mean, surely that's parenting 101. Don't bring your baby close to a rotting corpse.
It must be in there somewhere.
Yeah, he gets high all the time. He prioritizes his, male needs over, food, cooking on the stove, or the well-being of their baby. Yeah, he locks the baby in the cupboard. When the baby is kidnapped, he starts swinging a pickaxe. Like, I mean, what?
Yes, Claire does say you're going to hit the baby, but he doesn't pay much attention. I guess a lot of this is excused by he's infected by parasitic fungus, but not much.
Not all the movie, though. I mean, there are a lot of bad decisions he makes before he's even infected. Yeah. So it's kind of one of those movies where these are not great characters. They're flawed characters. They're not Ripley's, they're not strong, very, very smart people.
No.
They're kind of making decisions I might make in circumstances like this.
True.
I might, and it's, like I said, like the slasher aspect, it's just like, don't go in there. Why are you going to the shed now? Why are you doing that? It's kind of almost like audience participation watching this movie, just me constantly yelling at the movie, but not in an annoying way, which I find with some slashers, like where it's just like groan worthy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it has a bit of a pass. Like, it's people making mistakes, but I think it's part of the movie.
It is, yeah. And none of them were ones where I lost sympathy with the character completely. I mean, partly that's because Joseph Maul is a lovely actor. And I don't know, I struggled with, is it Bohana or Bojana? I'm not sure how to treat that
I think
J.
it's Bojana.
Bojana, okay. Novakovic.
She's actually an Australian actress. I did not know that. Yeah, she's got a Serbian name because she is born in Serbia, but she's completely Australian. She did remind me a lot of like Rose Byrne, who was another Australian actress. She has that sort of, I don't know, that sort of air about her.
Right.
And she has been in a couple of movies, not a lot. She was in I, Tonya, Beyond Skyline, one of the mini Skyline sequels, and Drag Me to Hell.
Yes.
Also, she was a character Bianca from Shameless as well. But I didn't know she was Australian in this movie. I thought she was a pretty good character, her character of Claire.
Yeah.
I sympathized with her character much more than the bad decision-making Adam.
Yeah.
I was constantly just like, why are you doing this, Adam?
Yeah. I like Joseph Maul. I first saw him in Birdsong, which is a lovely World War I story starring Eddie Redmayne in the lead role and Clemence Posey. Beautiful love story. If you ever want to see the most convincing depiction of first love on screen, that's your movie. I think he's a very sympathetic actor, which keeps you on board with his character, even though he makes a string of really ridiculous decisions. I was a little bit disappointed with Claire in that she really doesn't get anything to say beyond Act 1. The rest of the movie is just, I found her making bizarre mooing noises on ADR in looping, because she just seems to spend Acts 2 and 3 just going, at various things. There's no dialogue really from half an hour onwards, and she doesn't really get much agency towards the end. I mean, it's Adam that you see with the flaming weapon going after the child that's in the lair of the beast.
I was disappointed
at the end. So it's basically Aliens, but without Ripley. It's Adam.
I did want, because of all the terrible decisions that Adam made, I thought when he fell off the ladder from the attic and it sounded like he broke his neck. I mean, I thought he was not going to get up from that. I thought, this is interesting. He's gone. No more Adam. Now it's Claire having to fend for herself. I would have really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But didn't quite have that.
No.
Well, of course, we have to have the man, swoop in with a flaming scythe and decapitate a Hallow creature.
Of course.
Yeah.
Now it's time for Random Trivia.
Okay, Dan, what stunning piece of trivia did you discover in the deep dark woods today?
Yes, well, there apparently were two mishaps, near misses of tragedy in filming this movie. So there was a quad bike accident where a bunch of crew were on a quad bike that skidded off road, and luckily they all survived unscathed. But also there was an incident where a crew member, the lighting director, Eric DeWild, was setting up some lights, and somehow he put his foot through a ladder and he falls off the ladder sideways, and Corin Hardy, the director himself, manages to catch him mid-fall, and he avoids injury. And it's all captured on film on the behind the scenes. It's like, wow, that could have been painful.
Wow.
So yeah, saving lives, the director Corin Hardy.
Accolades for that. I mean, any director that's going to save your life on the set is definitely worth working with.
Yes.
And that's our trivia.
Yes.
Final thing, what did you think of the music? It's by a composer called James Gosling. Not a name I have come across before.
Yeah, James Gosling. No one I've come across. He's done a bunch of TV, I think. Yeah, so the music is orchestral. It's a lot of strings and a lot of percussion, a lot of like sort of resonant tones, like a lot of bass heavy frequencies. I don't think there's any real orchestra. There is live percussion and live drums and apparently a solo violin and solo cello. So whether they just did the thing where they just multi-tracked like the same violin line 20,000 times to create an orchestra, I'm not sure. But there's brass in there. So I guess all VSTs, like all like just, instrument libraries rather than an actual orchestra. I thought it was fine. It wasn't groundbreaking, but I did appreciate all the live percussion because it felt much more like a sense of urgency with the playing, because it was an actual human playing it as opposed to someone just banging away on a MIDI keyboard.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think you're right. It's orchestra in a box. It's VST. So I was listening to it and thinking it's just a wash of slightly overactive, slightly too much VST orchestral thumping. The percussion was nice, yeah. But he didn't do anything particularly interesting or groundbreaking, unlike something like The Ritual. Ben Lovitz did the score for that, where it's tonally and instrumentally very interesting and really enhances the atmosphere and puts you in this slightly different world, whereas this is just a wash of orchestral cliches played by VSTs, and I just listened to it and thought, it's the sort of rubbish I would do.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't think it was bad, though. I didn't think it was bad. It didn't feel cheap. It didn't feel like a TV movie at all. Like, it still felt big. I mean, a little bit cliche, but like big. And it's one of those modern scores where it's definitely much more about mood and tone than any themes or melodic anything.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot of ominous low frequencies and brass swells, but I did appreciate the percussion.
Yeah, me too. That's all I've got.
Yeah.
Coming to you live from the Movie Oubliette Theatre, it's the prestigious Mobley Awards.
Hey, it's the Mooley Awards, is where we present our favourite Hallow creature, eye-piercing parts of the film in a number of, wait, is that my baby or is that actually a changeling categories?
Best quote.
Okay, my favourite quote was the only significant piece of dialogue I could find in the entire movie, which is where Adam and Claire are in the kitchen and Adam puts his sexual needs in front of dinner, burning down the kitchen, his baby crying, and Claire is bent over the dishwasher or something, and he's staring at her bottom, and she says, "Don't creepy eye me, Ant-Man." And that turns out to be prophetic, because he does indeed end up as a possessed drone ant like the ones he mentioned just before, and he has a creepy eye. So,
wow, yes.
Yeah.
He does. My favorite quote is actually the opening text, but it is quoted later on in the movie. So here we go. "Hallow be their name, and blessed be their claim. If you who trespass put down roots, then hallow be your name."
Best hair or costume? I saw nothing by way of hair and costume that interested me in this movie. How
Nothing.
about you?
Yep, me too. Nothing. Just normal clothing. Like what would you expect? It's cold. They wear a woolly jumper. They have pants on. I mean, it's Ireland in the countryside. Like who's putting on makeup and jogging around?
No, so I guess kudos to the costume designer for not putting them in something ridiculous that we would comment on.
Yeah. Nothing.
Yep. Nothing.
Most 2010s moment.
So I alluded to this before. I think the most 2010s thing about this movie is the folk horror aspect to it. I think it started pretty much with Robert Eggers' The Witch in 2015. But you've also got David Bruckner, former guest, his film The Ritual from 2017. Gareth Evans' Apostle in 2018, Ari Aster's Hereditary and Midsommar 18 and 19, Lee Cronin's The Hole in the Ground 2019, also set in Ireland and has a baby in peril, and Doppelgangers, very good movie, highly recommended. Krampus, I think, fits into this category.
Yes,
it's a
yes.
seasonal one, but it does. Michael Dougherty's film from 2015, and possibly an early entry, Ben Wheatley's A Field in England in 2013 as well.
Right.
So, yeah, so a lot of these.
In terms of what I thought was 2010s in this movie was just the use of a camera for horror. Like, I mean, it started in like the early 2000s and also through to the 2010s with all the found footage stuff. So they used the camera pretty much like found footage, really. The fact that they're using it as a flash to scare us, really, as audience members, because there is no logical reason for Claire to grab the camera as a source of light to run away from terrifying monsters. There's no logical reason.
No.
The only logical reason is it's a horror movie. It's more scary when you have a bright flash of light rather than constant light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite scene.
I thought the scene, so there's a scene where Claire is in the attic and she's shut the sort of trapdoor, and then one of the monsters bursts through, and it's just a claw. It's just a huge claw, and I thought it looked amazing. And during watching the behind the scenes, it's all practical, and it looks practical. It looks really there. One thing as well, I guess this must be a reference to Alien, but the claw extends. Like sort of this little tendril extends out from the tip of the claw towards Claire's eye, to a point where it's just like a needle point. And I just thought it was terrifying and riveting, like and a really, really horrifying scene. It did kind of remind me of the scene from Lucio Fulci's film Zombie. Completely different sort of scene though, but the eye sort of ocular trauma or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. That sort of thing.
Yeah, I saw a number of reviews that said if you're not a fan of eye trauma, this isn't your movie.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of eyes with pointy things coming towards them. My favourite scene was when they were trying to leave because, well, that was a sensible thing to do, but I just thought it was really well done that their attempts to start the car temporarily turns the brake lights on, which means that it illuminates a tableau of slowly advancing monsters behind the car, and they don't move when the light is on. It's just every time the light comes on, they're slightly closer. And it's really disturbing. And the capper on the scene is looking forwards. Adam pushes the bonnet of the car down, and then you suddenly see that they are all around him in front of the car too, and they are really close. And then it just complete panic breaks out, and I thought, well done. This is actually really well constructed suspense and terror. I loved it.
Most cliche moment.
As I hinted in my introduction to the film, does the dog get it? Yes, the dog does. But I wanted to point out a slightly different cliche, which is the dog that leads the main character towards a dangerous discovery. And this is another bad decision in slasher movies sort of thing that you've mentioned before. Actually, it's more of a sort of ghosty movie thing, which is, you know, if you hear your dog whining and shouting, don't investigate it. just call it back. You know, don't go and look. And definitely don't prod the thing that it's found while your baby is strapped up. No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Best special effect.
It's the hand. It's the big claw. It's amazing. It's terrifying. It's a practical effect, so it looks really good. It's a great effect.
It is, and it's exactly the same one that I wrote down as well. Was it practical even to the point where one of the fingers sort of sprouts, changes into that needle thing and starts advancing, or is that sort of digital addition? Because even that looked really good.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because the director Corin did mention like they did use CGI to enhance practical effects, but then one of the other effects guys was talking about how they tried to get it as close to her eye as possible, and then they reversed the footage. So maybe it is practical right to the very point, but I'm not sure.
No, it is incredible. Yeah, very well executed as well.
Yes,
so
yes.
I loved it.
I actually thought a lot of the fungal growths looked really good as well, because this. I mean, you don't get this much in modern horror, but this is a body horror movie. There are hints to The Fly, so Adam's transformation to this whatever he's transforming into. So you've got these kind of growths from his face and his shoulder and his back, and there's these subtle movements that they kind of extend. Like it's really good. It's really, really good, and I think a lot of it is practical as well. It's amazing animatronics going on there.
Oh wow, yeah, all homegrown talent as well.
Yes.
Favorite sound effect.
I didn't have a particularly favorite sound. I did notice that everything was very, very wet and squishy.
Yes.
Like even Adam taking off a temporary bandage on his eye, just taking the cloth off, resulted in a sound that was like somebody stirring a giant vat of congealed custard. It was just all a bit too much sometimes. And my favorite cliched noise was the camera flash whine, which I do love, but I don't know, in 2015, do cameras make that noise? Because that noise is the flash sort of building up energy to flash at that intensity again. And I'm not sure in this day and age that they need to.
No.
Most funniest moment.
The funniest scene for me is... I don't know why, it just tickled me. But after Claire discovers her baby has been stolen from the cupboard and she's chasing like a hint of a yellow blanket that keeps disappearing in front of her in the woods, that sort of got me giggling as it was. But then when she finally got to like a muddy lake and she just sees her baby surfing across it and then slowly submerge like a submarine, I was just in fits. I thought, this is clearly not a real baby. So it came as no surprise to me that ended up being the changeling or whatever it was, because it was surfing across a muddy pond.
Funniest for me, again, unintentional, but they find out that iron is one of the weaknesses of these creatures. Like they get burnt by iron. And so they start, barring up all the windows with iron bars and things like that. But I laughed at the fact that their strongest line of defense against the creatures was hanging pots and pans at the window. It's just like, wow, that looks strong, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much iron is in the average modern pan anyway. There we go. Okay, and that's our Mooblies.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Bernard Rose, the director of Paper House, and you're listening to Movie Oubliette.
All right, it's final verdict time. Should the Irish folk horror The Hallow be ejected from the oubliette to infect the world with its fungal goo and be loved by all, or should it be pummeled with iron and thrown back into the darkness of the oubliette, never to be seen again? Double blind for us. None of us had seen it. Conrad, what's your final verdict?
Well, it's a tricky one, I have to say, because the director seems like a really nice guy who had really good intentions, a genuine genre fan. I would love to have him on the pod to talk about a movie that he loves. But at the same time, this movie doesn't quite hold up for me. I mean, I think the creature design is great. The execution is great. It looks beautiful. But just in terms of coming together as an effective movie, I think the first third of it is solid, but it just goes completely off the rails. And there just seems to be such a desperation to do all our favorite movies in one movie, but there's no thematic consistency. There's no character consistency. I wasn't particularly scared after the first half hour either, because it just seemed to fall apart. I just didn't understand the motives of anybody, really, and I wasn't particularly invested. And it was just such a jumble of different influences and things happening because movie, rather than things happening because any kind of logic whatsoever, narratively or thematically. But there was just so much intent behind it and such an interesting, fertile field that they were delving into, but they just didn't quite make it for me, and in the end I just found it quite mundane but promising. I didn't hate it, but then that last thing happened and I said fuck you movie and threw my remote across the room and that was just the final straw for me. So my final decision is, although I appreciate a lot of it and I think the director's a lovely guy, this one didn't do it for me, so I would not recommend it to anybody. How about you?
That's interesting. This is I think one of our third Irish film that we've done, and all three of them you didn't recommend. Rawhead
Really?
Rex,
Oh my goodness.
Rawhead Rex and City of Ember. I mean, that was more of an American Irish film, but
Yeah, it's true.
yeah. So I don't know what you've got against the Irish, Conrad.
Honestly, nothing. Honestly, I think even the Irish hate Rawhead Rex, but carry on.
I mean, I would agree with all of those aspects that you've mentioned. Like, I do think a lot of them, there are a lot of flaws in this movie. I think the characters are deeply flawed as well. But I love the premise. I love this kind of mythology and folklore and putting that in the horror realm. I love that. I wish there were more movies like this. I don't think there are enough. And I really, really appreciated the fact that Corin Hardy wanted it to be mainly practical effects. That really sells this movie. If this movie was all CGI, it would have been awful, just awful. And having the practical effects made it much more terrifying. Yes, there are a lot of jump scares and they were really annoying, but I don't know. I didn't find it that irritating, and I was on board, and it did feel like a very audience participation type of movie where you're just yelling at the screen, and I enjoy that. I really enjoy that. I'm sick of watching movies where characters are just flawless. Like all the characters now are just so flawless and so like strong and smart and clever, and they're doing all the right things. Like, you know, sometimes I just want to watch a movie where people made bad decisions, and that's fine. That's also entertaining. So I would recommend this movie. I like the setting, the fact it was shot on location, and all the effects, and I think it does hold up. And also, I really like creature features. So similar to Rawhead Rex, which is not a great movie. This movie is much better. I would recommend this movie to people out there who like folklore and creatures.
Okay, fair enough. Well, you know what that means? We have to bring out
The Coin of Fate.
Yes. Did you want to flip it?
Yes, I will. Are you going for heads or tails?
Or maybe I'll go for heads, because there is a decapitation in this movie.
Okay, for the first time this year, let's flip the coin of fate.
Okay, what's it gonna be?
Oh no, it's heads.
It's heads. Yeah. Well, the Irish come up on top today.
Yes, luck of the Irish. The coin of fate has spoken, so off you go into the woods.
I'm choosing the yellow blanket.
All right, so listeners, if you want to keep up to date with all our future episodes, you can follow us on all the social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Twitter while it lasts, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, and you can also email us at movie.podcast oubliette@gmail.com.
Yes, and if you would like to support the show in some way and get involved in our lovely community of cinephiles, then go on over to Patreon, where for as little as $1 you can nominate feature films for us to cover in future episodes and get extended bits of the show. And for $5 get access to our exclusive minisodes and extended interviews with our very, very special guests.
Yes. And we've got merchandise on Redbubble. Check it out, everything you want. And we also do really appreciate ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts or whatever you're consuming us on. It does really help us out and help spread the word of Movie Oubliette.
It does, yes, just like Icon Maker 24. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, what are we doing? Final episode of the year, Conrad, is our next episode.
No. It is, and it will be our seasonal festive special, so we will be covering, oh dear, the notorious but rather entertaining 1985 Christmas film from the same production team that brought us Superman the movie. It is Santa Claus the movie.
Okay, I don't know anything about this movie. I've never seen it. I don't know what all that stuff you just said meant, so I'm very intrigued.
Well, you're in for a treat, an experience, definitely. Fortunately, we will be joined by a super fan and special guest to see us through this movie, starring Dudley Moore, John Lithgow, David Huddleston, Judy Cornwell, and Burgess Meredith. There we go. So look forward to that.
Ah, yes. Oh, wow. All right, listeners, I can't wait to celebrate the festive season with you all.
Yes.
Until next time.
Bye for now.
Goodbye.
We review the films others tend to forget. Come with us and open up the movie Oubliette.
500 years of ancient Irish sludge are dripping all over Finn's bed.